Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to another video here. We are going to be diving into the Halloween franchise today. Yes, every single Halloween film from 1978 all the way to Halloween Ends. We're going to rank them all. But before we do so, please hit that like button down below and subscribe to this channel for continued movie, pop culture, video game related content. We will be talking about a lot of different things, ranking more stuff here, giving you guys some other types of videos as well along the way. You're going to want to subscribe here for all of that content. Comment below. Let me know how you'd rank the Halloween franchise as well. This is definitely a franchise with a lot of a few highs, with a lot of lows, and quite a few in the middle. So I think it's most interesting to see who has what in their middle section of this tier. Starting with the first Halloween film, the classic from 1978. I mean, you know where I'm going to rank it. Everybody ranks it in the same spot when it comes to this franchise. You got to rank this movie in S tier. It is by far the best film in this franchise. It really redefined what the slasher genre was, set its course for the future slasher craze that went on throughout the late 70s, 80s, 90s, and even as we're seeing today, people are still loving these types of films and these types of horror films. So for Halloween, I'm not going to be any different than most people or weird about it. I am ranking this in the S tier. It's by far the best movie in this franchise. So next we're talking about Halloween 2, which is a solid sequel. It is a film that definitely dives into the cheesier elements of slashers, the stuff that was kind of added when Friday the 13th came out. And then done in the Halloween franchise really for the first time in Halloween 2. Halloween 2 takes a goofier approach, but yet has a lot of fun with its setting, its hospital setting, with some solid scares as well along the way. The addition to Michael Myers and Laurie Strode being brother and sister is one that I've never personally loved, but is something that they've done a good job with in certain films across the last, 30 years, 40 years of this franchise. Certain ones do it better than others. Halloween 2 is one that takes that concept and does it better than most. And as for Halloween sequels, it definitely is one of the best. So, rating Halloween 2, I do think it's a significant step down from Halloween. So, I'm actually going to put it in B tier, but nonetheless, it is still one of the better films in this franchise. And I actually do like it quite a bit. Moving on to Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. Season of the Witch is a film that has grown much more in the last few years in terms of its acceptance and love across a lot of the horror community, especially with Halloween fans who used to kind of despise this movie for the fact that it doesn't include Michael Myers. Now, most people look at it as a really interesting horror film set on Halloween. I like this movie. I think I'm still in the minority of people who have not grown to truly love this film. I do want to rewatch it again. It's been a while since I've seen this film, and for me, it just didn't land. And it really didn't have much to do with Michael Myers. I just thought it was a kind of schlocky B horror movie from from the 80s, which is not necessarily a bad thing, especially compared to a lot of the strange decisions that were made with the rest of this franchise. I I think it's actually quite serviceable and it's a decent film, but I wouldn't put it as high as Halloween 2. For me, I would stick Halloween 3 Season of the Witch in C. I think it is a step down from Halloween and Halloween 2, obviously. But I think the things it does well, it does quite well, and I would like to rewatch it because it might jump up for me. I know for most of you out there who have rewatched this film many times in the last few years and grown to appreciate it as what it is. So now we have Halloween 4. Halloween 4 is a return to the Michael Myers character. It's a bit of a safe movie. It's pretty standard, but the ending is one of the great endings in the Halloween franchise. Really a twist that I didn't really see coming. An interesting supernatural side to try to make Michael's spirit almost possess Jamie, who really, that image of this, girl who was on the run the whole time, the sweet little girl, now being the next Michael Myers. It's jarring, just as jarring, honestly, as seeing Michael for the first time at the beginning of the first Halloween when we unmask him and realize that it's this little kid who just committed the murder that we saw. I actually like this movie quite a bit. I think it does work in most scenarios. Obviously, the mask is one of the absolute worst masks in the whole franchise. Honestly, brings it down a little bit for me. Still, there are enough flaws to where I think it could be better. but when you're comparing it to most Halloween films, I'd actually put it top of C. I think it's right in the middle there as a decent movie, one that I like to rewatch when I'm rewatching Halloween films, but one that doesn't necessarily have much of an identity of its own until you really get to the end. So now we'll look at Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, a film that really, unfortunately, backtracks on what made the ending of Halloween 4 so great. And now we've got Michael, who's just apparently living in some old man's shack for a year, being nursed back to health, and then he just decides to kill this guy and go on another killing spree. This movie is super goofy. The characters are awful in this one. Loomis is nutty. He's weird. He's the weirdest he's ever been. And the new characters that are introduced are not good. The mask in this one, honestly, might be my least favorite because the way it sticks out of his costume, it just looks so strange. And this movie's kind of boring. Honestly, it's the traditional Halloween formula, but with worse characters you don't really care about, a lot of really cheesy, goofy moments. And unfortunately, that's going to make me put Halloween 5 actually in the F tier. I think Halloween 5 is a real a missed opportunity to do something new, a fallback into the safety of the Michael Myers character. So now we go to Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, an absolute mess of a film, a movie that's plot is all over the place and solidifies the supernatural cult element that was kind of created. They want us to believe was created in Halloween 4, and then we see a bunch of in Halloween 5, but they never actually explain what's going on. We just see shots of the man in black and then shots of this symbol of thorn. Unfortunately, we lost Donald Pleasance during the filming of this, so the Loomis stuff is very scattered. The ending is just it makes no sense. There's no logic to this ending. Certain times it works better than 5. I think some of the scares are a little better. There's a lot more violence in this movie, which doesn't necessarily always work for me. Characters are still bad, but I honestly like the characters a little more in this than I do in Halloween 5. The physicality of Michael Myers is way better in this film than it is in Halloween 5. So I think for those reasons, I would put it higher than Halloween 5. That being said, the story is an absolute nightmare. Some of the decisions it makes to kill off Jamie Lloyd, it's just kind of insulting to the audience that's been following some of this stuff for a while. I'm still going to put Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers in F, but I'm going to put it higher than Halloween 5. So next we have Halloween H2O, or 20 Years Later. This movie is very, very, very safe, but actually tells a satisfying story. This is probably the best Halloween movie we had gotten since Halloween 4, at least. And it brings back Jamie Lee Curtis for the first time since Halloween 2. I think Jamie Lee Curtis is excellent in this film. Laurie Strode goes through probably her best arc since maybe the first one, but the first one is more about the thrills. This is the most in depth I feel like we've really gotten with her psychology. The fact that she's trying to move on. She does have a family. She has a son. And she's overbearing, but she's not crazy like she is in the newer movies. Now, there's some things that just don't make any sense in this movie. Like, why is Michael coming now? I think all of that could have been fleshed out a bit more. It is a very brief movie. I think another 20 minutes, 30 minutes added to character and story would work a little bit better for fleshing out all the other characters. And there could be a few better sequences. There is a brief movie. Like, I feel like there could be scenes that are added to really enhance this movie, make it stand out a bit more. But the final confrontation between Laurie and Michael, the multi layers of it, the setting in the school, but also when she just decides to, spoilers again, if you haven't seen Halloween H2O, just decides to kill him, decapitate him, and it's done. I think it's actually one of the most satisfying endings that we've gotten in any Halloween film ever. I'm going to rank Halloween H2O actually pretty high. It's going to be in B tier. I think the film as a whole isn't quite as complete as Halloween 2, unfortunately, but its character work is definitely better than Halloween 2. And it's probably got the best character work out of any movie besides the original Halloween. So next we've got Halloween Resurrection, which is the so bad it's good movie of this franchise, where Halloween 5 and Halloween 6 are not great movies, really actually quite bad movies. They aren't so bad, they're good. They're just pretty bad. There's some cheesy elements to them that you can have fun with. But Halloween Resurrection is on a whole nother level. Busta Rhymes, everybody knows he's in this movie. Everybody knows he does some karate. He's really into Bruce Lee movies. They have this whole really 2000s-y like reality TV angle where they're a bunch of random kids are in the Myers house trying to survive a few nights in there. The first 10 to 15 minutes, the whole Jamie Lee Curtis stuff, where they decide to kill her off for no reason, really just because she didn't want to be in the movies. They kill her off, and it's horrible. It's absolutely the worst character decision they've ever made for any character in the Halloween movies. And she kisses Michael and falls to her death, which really honestly isn't that high. I don't know. Like, man, she probably could have lived, but her character was just done at this point. Where the other ones all have redeeming factors. The only redeeming factor in this one is that it's terrible. And it's actually quite fun to watch. So it's definitely the worst, but I'd definitely rather rewatch it than Halloween 6 and 5. So now we move into the Rob Zombie verse, the two Rob Zombie films, starting with the first one, which to me is one of the most frustrating Halloween watches I've ever had. It's a movie that does a lot of things right, but it doesn't commit to really anything. Half of the movie wants to be a remake of the 70s Halloween film, which I think is a bad decision because that's one of the most classic horror films of all time. Remaking that was going to be impossible. But then add a first hour of the film where we're trying to dive into Michael's childhood, why he is the way he is, bullies at school, an abusive stepfather, a mother who is trying to keep this family together. And I didn't really dig that either. I felt like that, that stuff obviously takes away from the mystique of this character, why he's just pure evil. Loomis in this movie is kind of abrasive and crazy. I feel like the physical embodiment of Michael Myers by, I believe, Tyler Mane is actually quite good. I think all of that's good. There's some really goofy lines in this movie. Joe Grizzly is a standout for one scene. I mean, there's some stupid stuff like usual. I didn't really dig the family stuff. I thought that was a missed opportunity. Rob Zombie could have either decided to go all in on that, or they could go all in on a remake. I would have preferred him to choose one or the other instead of being like a weird mishmash. Like anytime your movie does like a 20-year time jump or 15-year time jump, it just doesn't really work. So I'm going to throw Rob Zombie's Halloween actually at the bottom of C. Again, it's a movie that I think is relatively competent, but its two tones, its two plot lines could have been married a little bit more to where the second half doesn't feel like an extremely rushed version of the 70s Halloween, and the first act doesn't feel like an extremely rushed origin story for Michael. So next we have Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, which depending on who you ask on the internet is either their least favorite movie ever or their favorite movie. Halloween 2 for me was, I think, a really interesting look at something different. And to me, it doesn't really work. It's also not a complete disaster to me. The characters, again, are a little too abrasive to really like. They're all a little despicable in their own ways. And there's giving your characters layers, but then there's also giving your characters unlikable qualities. This movie ventures too far into the unlikable qualities. There's also a lack of Michael in a lot of this movie where he's kind of just wandering around in the wilderness, killing random people who are mean to him again, almost like he's trying not to do this anymore. He's biding his time until his mom tells him to go do it again. There's a lot of strange stuff, and I'm not necessarily really that happy with the way it ends. Spoilers again for Halloween 2 if you have not seen it, but it ends with kind of a Halloween 4-esque ending where Michael is killed and the legacy of the Myers killer kind of passing on to Laurie. And she says she loves him, which is something that completely kind of contradicts the entire movie. So I think for me, I'm going to still have to put Rob Zombie's Halloween in D tier. It's a movie that wants to be an A tier or an S tier, but it doesn't do the groundwork to get itself there. So I'm going to put it in D tier. So next we have Halloween 2018. Halloween 2018 negates everything that happened besides the first Halloween and restarts for this David Gordon Green trilogy. This is a movie that I am mixed on, but definitely mixed positive. I think all the Michael Myers stuff works really well. There's a lot of great scenes. This movie is really well directed. It has a distinct vision. And I think what they did with Laurie works. I prefer the H2O version of Laurie. But this version is a solid, also plausible version of where Laurie could go. Her family dynamic when she's a part of it is good, but the granddaughter and the mom, her daughter, or Laurie's daughter, and her granddaughter, that stuff just does not work for me. Their family stuff does not work. And anytime it goes back to those other characters or their little high school dynamic, the high school drama, all of that stuff, to me, none of that works. The end climax I thought was great. I really liked it. I really liked the beginning with Michael at the asylum. So I'm actually going to drop Halloween 2018 at the top of B. There's just a really strong attempt in 2018 to elevate the material in the filmmaking, especially. There's some really great shots, some really great use of shadow and lighting, some really good color grading. This movie is really well made. It's just the story and the characters, the high school stuff that's awful. So next we have Halloween Kills. Halloween Kills to me was extremely disappointing. It's a film that has basically no story. There's a lot of like ideas here about mob mentality and trying to do something with the city of Haddonfield itself being really one of the pure evils. I didn't really dig the story. I think it could have worked if they decided to go in a certain direction. But even having Jamie Lee Curtis in this movie made it feel more disappointing. The fact that she's just kind of in a hospital bed the whole time. And really, it feels like this was supposed to be two movies that they decided to make a trilogy about, which is pretty much what happened. So Halloween Kills feels like an absolute waste of time. By the time you get to the ending, it's just an absolute mess. Everything you've watched was for nothing, where basically none of the characters have any growth at all. None of the things that happen in this movie have any consequences into Halloween Ends. It just is a movie that is there for you to see Michael Myers kill people. And because of that disappointment, I'm honestly going to put Halloween Kills in the F tier. Now, it's definitely way more competently made than Halloween 6, 5, or Resurrection. So don't get me wrong there. But I think this was one of the first Halloween movies that I watched with actual expectations. And I was so disappointed by the lack of character and story in this. So now we get to Halloween Ends, the newest film in the franchise. Halloween Ends is definitely divisive, and most people out there who have wanted to see this movie have already seen it by now and know that this character of Corey Cunningham is kind of the main character in this film. And I think looking back on it, it's disappointing. It's for sure disappointing. It's a movie that could be so much better. And even with the themes it's going for of the next Michael Myers can happen to anybody because of the things that can go on. But Michael Myers is different. And in this continuity, Michael is still the just evil little kid that turned into a monster. Corey's not like that. He's complete opposite. And then turning into this monster slowly, to me, is doesn't necessarily parallel as nicely as they would like it to. But the thing I give Halloween Ends, especially when compared to Halloween Kills, is that this movie still at least has characters and story. So that's nice. It's nice to be able to follow an arc for a character throughout this film. It's nice to follow a story that is coherent and actually feels like it does matter by the time you get to the end of the movie. The lack of Michael Myers in this is obviously extremely disappointing. Also, we needed more Laurie. We sidelined Laurie again for her granddaughter, who has never really been that interesting in these movies. At least her character in this, she's more adult. She's a little bit more grown up to be dealing with some problems that aren't goofy high school stuff. It has ideas that it goes for. And I appreciate that, similar to Halloween 2, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, it has things that it goes for and really wants to do. And even if they don't really work. So that means for Halloween Ends, I'm actually quite torn between C and D. I feel like the competence of the film and some of the better character work can make this a C. But I feel like the comparisons to Halloween 2, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, make me want to put it in D. I think it's a movie that just swings for the fences and it misses again. And it's kind of like Halloween 2. It's our second movie in the last 13 years to really try for something different and doesn't necessarily work. These ideas needed to be fleshed out before the last film in this trilogy. But those are my rankings of the Halloween franchise. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know again what you would rank, how you would rank these Halloween films down below. If you haven't checked out some of my other tier lists, I recently just posted one for the entire DCEU with Black Adam. Check that video out. If you have not checked out Star Wars Lads, which is the channel I'm working on stuff for every week, and you want to hear my thoughts on Andor or my thoughts on Tales of the Jedi, or really any Star Wars topic, we have basically videos for everything Star Wars over on Star Wars Lads. There will be a link to that channel in the description of this video, as well as a ton of the videos are posted in the playlists on this channel as well. So check out that channel if you haven't yet either. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.